you agree that works?
There are improvements that can be made with the process, but the letterbox contact, what you've got to understand is it's not for the birth parent. Mm-hmm. That's not why we're doing it.
Okay, so why is it?
It's for a record for the child.
Okay.
And often as well, I do get the sense a lot of the time that letterbox, like the contact that is there, is so that it's less, like it's so that the birth parent doesn't contest as much at the court stage. Because if you can sort of say to them, look, just don't create a fuss, mm-hmm. you're going to get a letter once a year, it eases their distress. Because the thing with adoption, it's such a severe thing to do. Such a severe thing to do to a parent, because you're severing the ties between a parent and a child legally. And when's the animal most dangerous is when it's wounded. So you, at that point, when the court is going to sever the ties between a parent and a child, you don't know what they're going to do. They might try and kidnap the child, do something crazy. That's the most dangerous point. And when a child's in foster care, when they're about to get adopted. So a lot of the times I feel like they use the letterbox contact as a way to sort of soothe the birth parent.
Does that work though?
No, not always. It didn't work with mine. No. So I was adopted because, as far as I'm aware, I was the product of a one-night stand. My biological mother has severe mental problems. I don't just mean, she was a bit depressed. She suffered with psychosis, something called borderline personality disorder, and severe OCD as well.
Your birth father?
Yeah, so I know who he is. He didn't want to be involved. He had 2 children of his own. Obviously, I was the product of possibly some kind of mistake. I'm born in September, so I imagine it was a Christmas party or something. That's just me dating back. But he didn't want anything, and I imagine part of that. I mean, I'm presuming this, I can't possibly know, I'm speculating, but I imagine part of it was the severity of my birth mother's mental illness that probably scared him quite a bit. And I think when social services approached him and asked would he take me, he just said no. I can't deal with this.
And he's got 2 other kids that might affect what he would have thought is the integrity of his current.
Well, he wasn't with their mother.
Oh, okay.
So he was single, but I'll get into that a bit later.
Okay, sorry.
So he was gone from the get-go straight away, didn't want anything, didn't want to be involved. So he signed the papers and everything. A DNA test also had to be done because my birth mother had a boyfriend at the time. Oh, wow. And it turned out that the other one was my birth father. But that's for later when we go down into the biological route. She did not believe she was mentally ill whatsoever, which is devastating because she had no self-awareness. So she knew that she wanted to keep me, but she couldn't take any of the steps in order to make that a possibility. So she wouldn't comprehend that she was mentally ill. She would, even after being sectioned, go to the local papers and make up stories that I was being taken away for no good reason and that there was some kind of conspiracy against her. She would put up pictures of me in local shops saying, "Have you seen my child?" and reported me as a missing child because I'd been taken by social services. And she just was not having it. She was not having me being put up for adoption, and she fought every step of the way to try and stop that happening. My adopted parents met her in court because obviously it had to go to court because she wouldn't consent to it. And what was agreed was that they were going to keep my name, my first name and my middle name. Obviously my surname had to change legally. So they kept my name, and they also said that they would do the letterbox service. So that to her was meant to be that sort of olive branch, the kind of negotiation that, like, look, if you consent. But it didn't work for her because she was so far gone away from reality. It just didn't work, and it just had to go through the court, and it got ordered that I had to be adopted. She did agree to the letterbox, and she did do it every single year.
Is it one letter a year?
1 letter a year, yeah. So they weren't allowed to give pictures of me because I'd been adopted in the same borough. So I was born in Croydon and I was also adopted in Croydon.
All right, so she can come see you.
So if she saw me, it would have been a very high risk to...
That'd be traumatic as well.
To me, yeah. So there were no pictures, but my parents would write for the benefit of her mental health, a factual letter. So no emotions in it, just simply what I was doing in school, things I'd achieved, maybe a picture that I'd drawn, things like that. And she would write her whole internal monologue back. And I mean 60 pages, handwritten front and back. Her emotions, everything that had happened to her that she could fit in a year. She would write in a way that she was writing what she was thinking as she was thinking it. And what was really interesting for me is that her handwriting would change. And obviously she has a personality disorder. So you could really see the extent of her mental health through the letters.
Oh, so you've read through it?
Yeah, so adopted children are really curious, naturally, because we know that there's things that we don't know. So, the original plan was that I would read all these letters when I was 18 or when I was old enough to comprehend. But, me being me and being curious, if my parents would go to the shop or something, I knew where the letters were, so I'd just go read them anyway.
What age did you read the first one?
Before 10.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you should have waited?
Yes.